Welcome back to Let Me Pull Your Coat. This week, it's China Doll. But today, since this week's podcast deals with governmental policies and issues, I'm using my government name, Vanessa. Tonight we're stepping into a conversation that has been flooding the inbox, the voicemail section of the website, and social media from women all over the country, especially Black women. Women asking, what exactly is Project 2025? Who is Kevin Roberts? Why are people saying women and minorities should be worried? Is this politics, or is something bigger happening? Now let me make something very clear before we start. This episode is not fear propaganda, and it is not political worship either. Because one thing this platform does not do is blind loyalty to anybody. This episode is about understanding what people are talking about, why people are nervous, and what parts are facts versus emotion. Because too many people today build their opinions from clips, memes, outrage posts, and social media arguments without actually understanding the policies being discussed. And if you've been listening to the new True Tales from the Let Me Pull Your Coat podcast, bonus episodes, then you already know this platform has been talking about consequences, power, instability, and emotional manipulation from the beginning. This episode is simply putting that same energy into politics and policy. Before we get into this, go to letmepullyourcoat.com. Leave a voice message, check the reviews page, visit the video page, visit the blog page, sign up for our free newsletter, and make sure you subscribe to Let Me Pull Your Coat podcast and True Tales on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Blue Sky, Fanbase, and YouTube. And shout out to everybody supporting us through Buy Me a Coffee and Cash App. You are helping keep independent conversations alive. First, let's answer the biggest question. Who is Kevin Roberts? Kevin Roberts is the president of the Heritage Foundation, one of the most influential conservative think tanks in America. And Project 2025 is a large policy blueprint tied to conservative organizations and former Trump administration officials that outlines how a future Republican administration could dramatically reshape the federal government. Now this is where many women, especially Black women, started paying attention. Because parts of Project 2025 discuss reducing federal agencies, replacing thousands of government workers, eliminating or shrinking diversity initiatives, increasing presidential authority, and restructuring civil service protections. Supporters say this is about reducing bureaucracy and restoring conservative values. Critics say it could weaken protections that women and minorities have depended on for decades. That is where the fear starts. Now let me pull your coat on something important. A lot of Black women work in sectors deeply connected to federal employment, education, healthcare, administration, and diversity initiatives. So when people hear phrases like, eliminate DEI, replace federal workers, restructure agencies, or remove protections, they immediately start asking, who gets replaced first? And whether people agree or disagree politically, that fear is real. First, we have Tanya from Baltimore, Maryland. She says she works in education and feels like conversations around diversity programs suddenly became politically dangerous. That concern is happening nationwide. Over the last few years, there has been increasing political backlash against DEI programs, affirmative action discussions, and race-conscious policies in education and employment. Supporters of these rollbacks argue that hiring and admissions should be completely merit-based without identity considerations. Critics argue that removing these programs ignores historical inequality and disproportionately affects women and minorities. That tension is now sitting right in the center of American politics. And many Black women feel like they are standing directly in the middle of it. Now we have Aisha from Peoria, Illinois. She says she feels like people are slowly trying to erase the progress made after the civil rights movement. That concern is deeply tied to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The Voting Rights Act was one of the most important civil rights laws in American history because it was designed to stop racial discrimination in voting. But over time, parts of the law have been weakened through court rulings, especially the 2013 Supreme Court case Shelby County v. Holder, which removed portions of federal oversight over certain state voting law changes. Critics argue that these changes weaken protections for minority voters. Supporters argued the old oversight formulas were outdated. Again, same country, different interpretation. But many Black Americans view these legal shifts as warning signs that protections once considered permanent can absolutely be reversed. Next, we have Jasmine from Detroit, Michigan. She says she noticed several stories about military leaders and government officials being removed and wants to know why that matters. Leadership changes happen under every administration. That part is important to say honestly. But recently, some removals and restructuring conversations involving military and government leadership became politically charged because several high-profile officials connected to diversity initiatives or minority leadership positions were removed or criticized publicly. Supporters described these moves as eliminating political activism inside institutions. Critics viewed them as attacks on diversity and inclusion progress. And when people repeatedly see terms like anti-DEI, anti-woke, government purge, or replace career workers, many women begin wondering whether those changes eventually affect them personally. That is the emotional reality behind these questions. Now we have Charlene from Memphis, Tennessee. She says she feels emotionally exhausted trying to figure out what is real versus political fear online. That is probably the most important statement in this entire episode. Because modern politics now operates through emotional overload. Everybody is terrified. Everybody is angry. Everybody thinks democracy is ending every 4 years. And social media amplifies fear because fear keeps people engaged. That is why people have to slow down and actually study policy instead of reacting emotionally to headlines. Read multiple perspectives. Study actual legislation. Understand what is propose versus what is rumor. Because emotional manipulation exists on every side of politics now. And people who stay emotionally reactive become easy to control. Now let's talk about Rome for a moment. I know we've discussed it before, but it is the perfect example of what may be happening today. Rome did not collapse in one dramatic afternoon. Its decline happened slowly over generations. Political division, economic instability, loss of trust in institutions, internal fighting, leaders prioritizing power over unity, and eventually the cracks became too large to ignore. America is not Rome, but history teaches patterns. Every powerful nation eventually reaches moments where people begin questioning whether institutions still protect everybody fairly. And once enough citizens lose trust in the system, fear spreads quickly. That is why education matters. That is why community matters. And that is why participation matters. Because powerful countries rarely weaken from one single outside enemy. They weaken when enough people inside stop believing they share a future together. Here is this week's shoutouts. Shout out to Nia in Chicago, Illinois. Shout out to Fatima in London, England. Shout out to Rochelle in Houston, Texas. Shout out to Simone in Toronto, Canada. Shout out to Kendra in Birmingham, Alabama. Special shout out to everybody signing up for the newsletter this week. And major love to everybody supporting us through Buy Me a Coffee and Cash App. You are helping independent conversations stay alive. Here is your co-poll of the week. The most dangerous thing any group of people can do is become politically emotional while remaining economically and educationally unprepared. Because fear without strategy changes nothing. Every administration changes policy. Every generation faces political shifts. Every era produces fear about what comes next. But history shows something very clearly. Communities survive long-term through organization, education, ownership, preparation, and participation. Not panic. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is waiting until systems change before they start paying attention to how power works. That is why understanding politics matters. Not because politicians will save you, but because policies shape schools, jobs, healthcare, housing, voting access, and economic opportunity, whether people pay attention or not. The goal should never be blind fear. The goal should be awareness. Because emotional people are easier to manipulate. Informed people are harder to control. This is Vanessa, also known as China Doll. Make sure you follow, subscribe, and leave a review. Go to letmepullyourcoat.com and explore everything. Voicemail, reviews page, video page, your post page, and do not forget to listen to the bonus episodes. True tales from the Let Me Pull Your Coat podcast. Because behind every major policy conversation, there are real people trying to figure out how their future might change. Until next time, as always, we wish you much love and much respect.